And welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host Tal. I'm a little jittery this episode. Sorry about that, but I'm good to go. No, don't worry about me. I'm not that nervous. Robyn, welcome back to today's episode. How you doing?
Oh, fuck, are we still not on my podcast? Are we still on Too Many Movies still? Oh, great.
This is the only podcast in existence.
Well, soon to be. Oh, at least for now.
Yeah, for now. We're recording this on Sunday, March 2nd, so take that with a grain of salt with whatever we're talking about.
I don't know. I don't have salt on me.
Oh,
We're supposed to bring salt?
No, I just have pepper myself, so, you know.
Oh, that works.
Yeah. I don't have a clever segue, so let's just get into today's first movie. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Yeah, baby, yeah, woo, fancy. Yeah, no, I've always wanted to talk about this movie. Not sure how I wanted to approach. Well, I had an idea of how I wanted to approach it, but that's not how we're approaching it this episode. I'll explain that a little later. But this is a Stanley Kubrick film. Stanley Kubrick, one of my all-time favorite directors. If he's not number one, he's absolutely top three, I would say. And this was my very first Kubrick film I ever watched, and I'll get a little into that in a bit, but I just wanted to establish that it's a Kubrick film. We're here to talk about it. I did want to ask Robyn, I believe this was your first time watching Dr. Strangelove. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yes, it is actually.
Okay.
Heck, I think this is probably my first Kubrick film in a way as well.
Okay.
Like, I'm aware of the guy. I
Mhm.
know he's done some interesting stuff.
Yes.
I think when I was watching this movie, I'm just like, wait, who the fuck directed this movie?
Yeah.
Kubrick?
Yeah.
I don't know what his style is, but I mean, I know he did The Shining.
Yes.
Like the original Shining. Space Odyssey.
Mhm.
Probably some other third thing. I feel like I should know, but probably do not know about top of my head. I don't know. But like, yeah, this sure was a movie he directed.
It's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Even if you've never seen every single Kubrick film, like I'm still a little behind. I think at this point I might have, if not a couple, maybe at least one more I still haven't seen. I haven't seen Spartacus. I think that is the one I have not seen of his. But even if you haven't seen a lot of his movies, you know of him, you know his influences, you know of the movies he's directed.
Yeah, Full Metal Jacket. That's the other third thing I was probably thinking of.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure. Yeah, no, he is. We've talked about movies of his on the podcast before. It's been a while actually. I think the last one we did was The Shining. That was Ben Uncultured Swine's first episode. That was way back in 2023. How about that?
And also The Clockwork Orange. I forgot that was also like a film he did as well.
Yep, Clockwork Orange, 2001.
That's another we talked about. That's another movie I want to see.
Oh, dude, it's so good, so good. I love.
I've heard. I know it has the iconic eye torture scene that I see memed a lot.
Oh yeah. That's another thing too. Is even if you've never seen a lot of his movies, you've definitely seen scenes in either movies or shows or whatever in media parodying a Kubrick scene. So yeah, that's a perfect example. In Clockwork Orange, you have the scene of of the main character having his eyes opened unnaturally, like he has all these wires in his eyes to keep them open because he's being forced to watch something. Yeah, that has been memed and parodied in a lot of stuff. He is a very influential director. It's insane how popular Kubrick's influence has been for so long. Even to this day, his stuff still gets brought up,
Oh yeah, totally. Also, I was like, while I was looking it up on Wikipedia, I forgot. Oh shoot, this guy died like in 1999.
Yeah, he died a couple months before his final movie premiered. There's a whole conspiracy
Yeah,
around that.
for
Which,
real?
yeah, it's a whole thing. I do not have the time to go into it right now, but it's a whole thing. Just know. Yeah.
Bro got Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman on Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, dude.
Cool. Was not expecting the AMC lady, but sure.
Exactly. Um, so Doctor Strangelove specifically, I guess I can get into it a little bit. As I said, this was my first one, and I told you about this before the show. I did not like it the first time I watched it. Now, in my defense, I was between the ages of 12 and 14, I think. So I did not understand at all what this movie was doing. And because I remember my dad had
I'm gonna
told
be
me,
real with you.
go ahead, sorry.
I'm gonna be, no. Sorry for interrupting for a moment. I'm gonna be real with you. I kind of felt that when I was just watching it last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, I didn't like it when I first started. Like, I was confused. I was so lost. I can explain. I'll go in a bit more depth into why that was later because I have quite the funny story about it. But you
Mhm.
continue.
Sure. Yeah, no. Admittedly, it is a weird one. I mean, again, I can't really be mad that you didn't like it because again, I also did not like it the first time I watched it. I've been in that exact same scenario. Um and
You were trying 14. I'm 22 years old
yeah, well, again,
on my first.
I mean, Kubrick, for as influential as he is a little weird at first. I feel like, you see this a lot with his other movies. 2001 is one of those controversial ones where a lot of people, the first time they watch it, they hate it because it is a lot to take in. But you then start to appreciate more and more when you watch it again and again. A lot of his movies require multiple watches in order to, I would say, to fully appreciate. Sometimes, you watch one of his things once and you're like, oh, this rocks. Everybody's different. Everybody is going to have a different experience with Kubrick. But one thing you can't deny is that he is a very unique filmmaker. But anyway, so yeah, I watched it with my dad. Again, I can't exactly remember how old I was. I want to say between the ages of 12 and 14. That sounds likely cuz I was definitely not young enough where I wasn't really understanding cinema that much. I was definitely old enough to want to watch movies. Not that I didn't watch movies as a very young kid, but when I was a kid, I would be watching stuff like Star Wars, like Pixar, like The Muppets, stuff that would have
Mhm.
aimed towards me at that age, that would make sense for me to be watching. Um, Whereas I feel like I had to have been a little bit older as a kid, but not old enough to where I feel like I was definitely more obsessed with cinema. Like I would say the very first time, I would say around the time I started obsessing over movies the way I do now, I would have been like 16. So this was definitely before I was 16. So I'm saying it has to have been between the ages of 12 and 14. I'm so old now, I can't even remember, but I can't give you specifics. Anyway, so
Can't be that old.
no, I'm 26. So, but you know what I mean. um, so I was watching it with my dad, and my dad had hyped it up where he was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna be watching Doctor Strangelove. It's this comedy, this satire, this black comedy." And I really respected a lot of the movies my dad recommended to me, so this I was very excited for. But again, being 12 or 14 or whatever and watching a black and white comedy that's not a comedy in the sense that I understood comedy. When I think comedies, even though this is one of my favorites looking at it, when I think comedy, I'm thinking of movies like UHF, Airplane, Blazing Saddles, Spaceballs, anything directed by the Zucker brothers or Mel Brooks that I hold in high regards. Those are comedies. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Like those are some of my favorite comedies because they're the movies I think about when I think comedies. And when you watch those movies, those are some of the most heavy joke movies ever made. There is gags and jokes every 5 seconds. There's always something funny going on in those movies. Every frame can be labeled as a joke, those movies. And they're made all the better for it. Doctor Strangelove is not that. This movie is not funny in the same way something like Airplane is funny. It's not a very goofy movie. But in other ways it is.
Thank you.
so
because I'm gonna be real, because I was watching it, I'm just, because I say it's like the Wikipedia says it's a black comedy film, and I'm just like, where's the funny? I'm not laughing. This is like 1984 or something, or whatever that movie Spielberg named, whatever that film that directed that was like some sort of war comedy. And I'm like, this is like my 1984. I'm like, James, right now, where's the comedy? Where's the funny?
You're thinking of 1941. See, 1941. Yeah, see, 1941. I feel like that's what I was expecting. Like, I didn't watch it until years later, but that movie is the generalized idea. When I think satire and comedy, I think the Airplane route of satire, the Mel Brooks route of satire, where the movie is absurd the whole way, and it knows it's absurd, so it like makes its absurdity obvious, and all the characters are just complete cartoon characters. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what makes those movies popular, is we view those as satires, as spoofs, as parodies, as whatever term you want to say. They're comedies at the end of the day, and they're meant to be funny. And Doctor Strangelove is meant to be funny, but again, much like how Kubrick tackles a genre, not in the necessarily traditional sense. So, yeah, at first, when you watch Doctor Strangelove, it's not funny because not a lot of jokes are being told. When I think of probably the most obvious joke in Doctor Strangelove, there's that scene when General Buck Turgidson, George C. Scott's character, is like attacking the Russian premier in the war room. They're like fighting, and then the president walks over to them and goes, "Gentlemen, you can't be fighting in here. This is the war room." It's like that.
Okay, that I kind of like.
Yes,
that was a funny one,
because that's an actual joke that was written to be funny. And again, I would even say the rest of the dialogue is written to be funny, but it's not as obvious. I feel as though that one joke is meant to be very obvious, and that's why that's seen as one of the most popular jokes in the movie, because anybody can point that out and be like, oh, that's a joke. Anybody can point that out and be like, that's hilarious. Whereas the rest of it is a little more subtle. And so I feel like with Doctor Strangelove, a lot of it also needs to be taken into a context. So the movie was made in 1964. Now, 1964, early 60s, kind of a tumultuous political period, especially for the Cold War at the time, because the Cold War was happening, where, that's one of the underlying themes of this movie is Cold War tensions, where it's America and the USSR, the Soviet Union, are kind of at odds with each other. We're not in a necessarily traditional war, but we're kind of, on edge with each other because we're trying to be the best and they're trying to be the best. We're at odds with each other, but not in the traditional sense where we're sending our troops out and fighting each other. We're not doing that. It's kind of an unspoken war between the two countries. And a lot of that a lot of it was definitely heightened in the early 60s. You had, you're just coming off of the 1950s with the Red Scare and McCarthyism. You're coming off of the death of Stalin in the late 50s. A lot of tumultuous events led up to even more tumultuous events. The early 60s is when we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we found out that there were missiles in Cuba, the Russian missiles in Cuba, and that scared a lot of people. There was like a 2-week period in, I want to say 1962, where people were seriously thinking World War III was about to happen, because it's a whole other thing. I'm getting off topic of Doctor Strangelove by going into Cold War history, but there's a lot. There's a ton. But just know that the Cold War was happening. And that's why there's this whole idea of like, oh, the Americans and the Russians. And so there's that to keep in mind. Then there's the idea, like I said, the Cuban Missile Crisis has just been happening. So there's this idea that people were so afraid that a war was going to break out between America and Russia. And the idea isn't through, the idea isn't that they just like decide to go to war. The worst idea is that we go to war on accident, because something screwed up. And that's what this movie is about.
How?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I've been talking a lot. You go. You go ahead.
Oh, no, no. I was gonna let you resume, but like, there was 3 words I genuinely wish you did not say.
What's that? Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuban Missile Crisis.
Cuban Missile Crisis, shouta!
I love that image so much. It's so absurd.
me, me too. You know what? Fuck it.
Sure.
Put it in the corner.
Absolutely, sure. That's fine. Anyway, so no, it's good that you interrupted because then I can get my thoughts back on track a little bit. So, Doctor
Cool.
Strangelove is basically, it's made in response to the high tensions of the Cold War, where you have this idea that, you know, even though we're doing everything we're supposed to be, because we have so many systems in place where we don't want to go to war with Russia. You know, nobody ever wanted to go to war with Russia, and Russia didn't want to go to war with us. Like, nobody wanted to, because we had nuclear weapons, and just, you know, just even a couple of nuclear weapons that we had could destroy the whole world. So nobody wanted that. That's why nobody ever went to war. It was a mutual agreement that we don't want to do that unless we absolutely necessarily have to. And so that's why in the movie, the point of the movie is that, so it starts off with General Jack D. Ripper. That's his real name, by the way. The guy's name is Jack D. Ripper. Unironically, just no hint of irony.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. So General
Okay.
Jack D. Ripper.
That's not quick with me at first.
Yeah. So played by Sterling Hayden, great actor. He starts off the movie by saying, "Hey, we have intel that the Russians are going to attack us. We're going to attack first," or something like that. And so he sends a code to all the planes that are flying over Russia, all the American planes that are flying over Russia, to say, "Hey, go and start your attacks because we're being attacked by Russia." And that's when Colonel Mandrake, well, I think it's Colonel Mandrake, right? Captain Mandrake, sorry. Peter Sellers, one of many Peter Sellers performances in this movie. That's when Mandrake goes, "Hey, turns out we're not actually being attacked by Russia." And General Ripper's like, "No, I know. I want to strike first." And it's like, that's not how it works, sir. Like, and but that's the thing, is that the whole issues that arise through this movie, they start because one crazy person was in power. And so that's a very scary idea.
I just felt like a silly Billy today.
Yeah, it's a very scary idea because, I mean, when you think about it, it's entirely possible because we're only human. You know, you can't just, a lot of issues that can arise due to human error, and just, we're very emotional beings. You see how General Ripper throughout the movie is like, he's a very emotional guy. He remains very stoic and very manly throughout the movie, but underneath that facade, you know, he's very scared. He even talks about how afraid he is of getting his fluids infected by communism. Like, he's just saying this really weird stuff that you're just like, what are you talking about, dude? But you understand his fears perfectly. You don't agree with them because, again, the whole movie he's going like, "Oh, those damn communists, all they drink is vodka. They don't even drink water." And it's like, okay, that's not true. You're just making shit up because you're too afraid. You're too blinded by fear of the communists that you're thinking irrationally, and ergo, you're ending up costing a lot of lives because of that, because of where this movie ends up. And so, like I said, General Ripper, he was like, we have to strike first, so he sends out the American planes first, and then the rest of the movie is just the Americans trying to figure this out, being like, we're trying to get the planes back because we don't want to fight each other. And that's made even worse because the Russians reveal, they're like, "Hey, we were working on a doomsday device, so if you attack even one of our bases, we're just going to explode everything and cause massive extinction because we didn't trust you guys, because we heard you guys were making a doomsday device." You know, that's what this movie is about, is just Cold War tensions and the ridiculous lengths we went to seem better, while inadvertently making things a lot worse. Now, obviously, this movie came out, 60 years ago? Yeah, 60 years ago last year, because it was 1964. So 61 years ago it came out. obviously we didn't go to war with Russia. It's debatable if that's still happening. The idea of a Cold War, because there's always going to be tensions high within countries around the world. It's just, do we really want to risk sending our troops out there? That's a whole other thing. But obviously, this was, even to this day, I still think this movie is brilliant because I've explained that it's all about Cold War tensions and about how kind of ridiculous that was because, again, we're going through all of this. We're going through all of this for what? Just to be number one? Like, what does that mean, number one? And especially looking back, because, again, the USSR doesn't exist anymore. It's still Russia. It went back to being Russia, but it's not the USSR anymore. It's not the Soviet Union. They don't practice communism anymore. It's debatable even if they ever did, considering the state of everything that that communism gave them. Because, if anybody who knows what happened to the USSR, they were fucking put together through duct tape, man. I'm honestly surprised they were seen as a world power back in the day, considering what they were actually like. But, whatever. That's all in the past. Trying to think where I want to go from this. You know what? I've been talking for a while. You say something that you wanted to bring up about Dr. Strangelove, Robyn.
I got quite the funny story to tell you guys.
Yeah, please tell.
It's gonna be fucking stupid, but like I said earlier, part of me kind of like got confused trying to like understand what was happening for the most part of this film. And like part of me is just like I'm just here just like, okay, this is gonna be my I do not care for the Godfather moment. I don't get the hype for this movie. When it as it first started, stores are higher, and I'm just like what is the hype? All this is just people talking. It's all this is just people talking. It's all there is. There's barely like any action going on. There's barely like any like fuck. Where's the funny? Once again, where's the funny? So it's just I'm just here just like, okay, when there's like something exciting happen. Because there's also like so much stuff going on. You have the storyline with like Jack and Mandrake, the people in the war room with like the president and the general guy was like very like on edge and like skeptical because like they brought the Russian ambassador in. He's like, oh, this guy's like spying on us. I don't trust this guy and all that shit. And then of course the president's just like, would you like chill the fuck out, bro? And there's that, and then there's the guys on like the airplane that we follow that I guess are unaware of the recall that happens near the end.
Yes.
So they just keep going forward with the mission.
Yes.
So it's like I get confused a bit because like I mean sometimes I would understand like shows and such where like you don't have a actual direct protagonist. You have like a set of group cast of characters going about their whole their own stories throughout one set of characters on their story, and then you go into another set of characters like Arcane or Fate Zero, for example. Here it's like, okay, it's just I'm getting bored here in a way. But no, like at the end, like I actually start to like it a lot more because like now I'm like I feel more. Let's say I was more focused at the later half than I was at the beginning because so last night I started this movie. I think at 2 a.m, right? I mostly like just do like this sort of stuff like at late night because that's where I feel the most focused at because everyone's more like awake during the day and I'm just more and my activity occupied like hanging out with either you guys or the Sparks group or doing God knows what or just being out of the house or whatever. So like the more when I do like actual like like work stuff, it's like mostly like at night that I feel most focused. But I didn't finish this film until 5 a.m, and you want to know why? I spent the first half of this movie tinkering with my fucking fan in the room that I turned off. Because I was watching Fallen, of course. I was watching that. And well, the thing is that I was also in a Discord VC with some other friends of mine. So I'm trying to somewhat focus on that while also watching the movie. Watched it twice, mind you. Which I will explain why when we get to Fallen. I watched it twice, and I turned off the fan so I can like hear it a bit better, and I have like more focused on it. And then so when I turned it back on later, it started having this issue that it had, I think, like last week, where the fan would not like work, and I guess there's something like either, and it would not turn the thing was on. I could like hear the hum of it, but the fans were not like the blade was not spinning, and it started making this squeaking noise, and it just kept stopping every few seconds. So, and of course, the little like can of like oil that was already that's in my parents' room, which my dad was asleep during that time, so like I couldn't even go find it. I went to, so I had to like improvise with like Q-tips, like cleaning it, getting the dust off of it, just like clean the blades, and like the thing like running the blade is there. And for a little bit, it worked, and I kept like after a bit, it's rinse and repeat. There was an issue going on with it. I had to fix it, sit back down, and it's just like I just kept pausing, getting up, and just doing something else, and it kept going back and forth with me, and it was just driving me nuts. It's just like, actually, you know what? Here's the video of my suffering that night. Editor, put it here. I can't fucking take this shit anymore, bro. It is 4 in the fucking morning. I just want to watch this movie and go to bed. Why won't you leave me alone? What I fucking went through that night, or yesterday, and give up. I ain't dealing with this. I just want to focus on this movie and go to bed. I'm not already enjoying this movie so far. What's the fucking point? Because I almost wanted to like go into this just hating it, because it's just like my whole fucking night's ruined. But like after a while, after I finally focused on the movie, the later half actually started getting good, and I was actually starting to appreciate it a lot more, and especially that fucking ending. I'm just gonna say it. Jack. Whenever I saw like Jack and Andrick on screen, especially when like they were getting attacked in the room, like, dude, there was some homosexual tension between those two.
Yeah, which is funny because you have Ripper, who again is so obsessed. He has this obsession with fluids and liquids, and it's because a lot of the movie in general is just very. It has a lot of undertones of sexuality. I mean, the fucking main credits, the opening credits, are when a plane is getting refueled in the sky, and the tube that's using to refuel the plane while it's still flying is very phallic looking. And yeah, it's a lot of this movie has a lot of sexual undertones because we as humans, we think about sex a lot because that's one of our base needs to, kind of procreate and keep our species living on. So that's always kind of in the back of our mind. And so, it's kind of hard to think rationally and not go to war with a warring nation when we have these underlying just urges inside of us. And that's kind of what the movie is saying. And I think that's what makes this movie funny is a lot of it is very subtle, the funny aspects of it, because the story itself is not funny when you think about it. Oh, the story of something going wrong, and then a bomb is dropped in Russia, and so then America and Russia are now in a bit of a war between the two. I know this can be seen as serious because literally months after Doctor Strangelove premiered, another movie came out called Failsafe. And that's a movie, again, almost very similar, where some American planes are flying over Russia. They get a code to drop the bomb on Russia. They do. And so then Russia retaliates, and it's this whole thing. Or the whole movie is basically them trying to get the bomb back, but they fail. Same as Doctor Strangelove. Not to spoil Failsafe, but I mean, when you watch it, it's not really something you can go in being spoiled for. I'll say that. But Doctor Strangelove takes that story very differently and makes it more of a comedy. But again, not in the sense that you have the characters running around spewing jokes. The characters themselves, they can be a little cartoony, but they're, I want to say, groundedly cartoony. I know that's not a word. I know that's not a phrase at all. That is like the opposite of anything rational. But it makes sense when you think about it, because the characters themselves, again, one, the names of these characters are all just jokes. Like I said, Jack D. Ripper, you have President Muffley, you have Buck D. Turgidson or whatever, like J.R.C. Scott's character. The guy who's in charge of the plane is named Major King Kong. It's like,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
There's straight up a guy in this movie.
It's like a fucking cowboy and everything. He's got a hat for it.
Yeah,
Like they got.
There is straight up a guy in this
Southern
movie.
guy running this plane.
Yeah, Slim Pickens, Major King Kong, and then there's also straight up just a guy named Bat Guano. Like not even that's not even trying to be a name. That's just Bat Guano. That literally his name is Batshit. Like that's his name is Bat Guano. It's not even being subtle.
Oh, that's the guy. Case. That's the guy who was that's the guy who like stormed
the base
mandrakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the one who's like.
No. Okay. Yeah. I did like. Okay. I actually did like the scene where it's like, oh yeah, like Jack's men like surrendered, right?
Yes.
You know, he's disappointed by it, and of course, he and Mandrake's having a conversation. Everything's all fine, hunky dory. And then the moment you enter the bathroom. And of course, Mandrake's just like, "Hey, you know what? Give the code to me, all right? If anyone's gonna, if you trust anyone with it, you got at least tell me, right?" And so he walks in the bathroom and all that, and next thing you know, you hear a gunshot. I'm just like, "Oh fuck me!" He took his own life.
Yeah.
Because I was actually kind of like scared, like he was actually gonna, like I was scared he was gonna shoot him or something. I'm just like, oh damn, okay, he took himself out. All right, cool.
Yeah. Well, I like that because,
and I do like.
Because I love his logic with killing himself, because Jack Ripper goes into it where he says, Mandrake, when you were tortured as a POW, were you like he asked him, were you tortured? And he says like, yes. And I didn't talk at all. But Ripper's just like, okay, well, I know I'm actually a pussy and I know I will talk and I don't want to talk. So he knows he has to kill himself because he knows he's that much of a coward to get tortured that he'll just talk instantly and give up to the enemy. And he knows he doesn't want to do that. So he knows the only way out is to kill himself. It's a very, very fascinating look into his psychology. It's really, really interesting. I love this character. I think it's fascinating. This character, General Jack D. Ripper, is one of the most fascinating characters to me.
I love the one thing that happens after Mandrake realizes, oh yeah, he needs to report to the president for to give him the code.
Yeah.
He's like that phone booth and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like short on cash, and he's just like, hey, you shoot that Coca-Cola machine. and then of course I think Bat's just like, all right, well, if this doesn't work and you can't get the president, you better start talking to the Coca-Cola company or something like that.
You're gonna have to answer to the Coca-Cola company. It's so funny.
Okay, that was a good line. Yeah. I have to admit.
Colonel Bat Guano, played by Keenan Wine. Fun fact: the voice of the Winter Warlock in Santa Claus Is Coming to Town. By the way.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, so again, the characters themselves have very ridiculous names, obviously, and they're at least, when I say they're groundedly cartoony, I mean that they do act kind of cartoon-ish, but in a way that I feel like I can absolutely see them being cartoonish in real life. Like these are absurd things they're saying, but I absolutely believe they would still be in power. Because I was watching a documentary on this movie after I watched it. I found it on the DVD I have for it. And it's a documentary, and one of the things I learned was when one of the script writers was writing the script for it, Terry Southern, he was asked by Kubrick. Kubrick asked him, this question really solidified in my mind when thinking about the movie. He asked him, hey, what can so-and-so's character realistically say and still be credible? Like, what is the most far out thing they could say but still be credible? And that was a very interesting way of framing that, where it's like, okay, what can this character say? Like, how can this character talk that can be kind of out there, a little weird, a little wonky, that could like raise an eyebrow or two, but this person could still hold their position of power. That's what this movie does. It does get absurd, but not in such a cartoony way that it becomes an all-out farce, like something like Airplane, like Blazing Saddles, where it crosses that line into cartoon logic. This toes the line of cartoon logic. It goes just absurd enough that you can laugh through the pain. And I think that's what makes it so brilliant. And that's why, that's why I'm not surprised Kubrick made this, because Kubrick could take a genre like comedy and just toe the line enough and make it his own thing, where he's not falling for the same tropes that other comedy films would. He did the same thing with his war film with Full Metal Jacket. He did it with horror with The Shining. He did it with sci-fi with 2001: A Space Odyssey. The dude just knows how to take a genre that he can do these genres better than most masters of the genre. That is something that's Kubrick, man. That's, I know I'm fumbling my words. That's just what made Kubrick so special. He could take these genres that he's not familiar with and make something that can be a shining example of that genre. And that's where the rewatches for this movie become very vital, because yes, like I said, once through, it is a little weird. Again, when I watched it, very weird first watch. So I highly recommend rewatching it, obviously on your own time. I'm not forcing you to be like, hey, you have to rewatch it because you watched it wrong. I don't believe in watching a movie wrong. Let me just say that, because everybody's perspective is going to be different. And from you explaining it, you wanted to give this movie a chance, and a lot of outside reasonings kind of made that impossible because, again, the fan. But even if the fan wasn't giving you issues, I guarantee you this would still be a strange first watch, because it's just a very weird movie. Not even just because the events are absurd that happen in the movie, but the fact that it plays itself very straight, and yet it's still considered a comedy. I think that could be very weird for a lot of people.
I think it was like not only that, but like I just my issues of just being a bit dyslexic and just distracted a lot, like not following along.
Yeah,
kind of gets in the way as well.
Sure. Again, that's why I highly recommend people check it out, and check it out multiple times to kind of get. And again, maybe that's why I say don't do it right away, because you could watch it again and you still get the same result where you're like, I don't really like this, and you feel as if you watched it wrong again. It's like, no, sometimes you just don't connect with the movie. That is entirely possible. And that shouldn't be a shameful thing. You just don't connect with the movie. That's entirely possible. And honestly, that's totally fine. It's still one of my favorite. I gotta say, this is probably my second favorite Kubrick film of all time, though. I love it to death. It is one of my all-time favorites. It is also one of my all-time favorite comedies. I mean, obviously, I still prefer stuff like the absurd stuff, like Airplane, like UHF. I love how absurd those movies get. I like that they jump into the cartoon logic. They don't try to toe the line. They're like, no, this is a straight-up live-action cartoon, and I'm all for that. That's why those are my favorites of all time. But when I think of something that's a little smarter, a little more heavier in thought, Dr. Strangelove is definitely my go-to for a comedy of that nature. Can you even think of like another movie you would describe as like a smart comedy? You know what I mean? Like this? Because I don't think I can.
No, I think I'm not that at the moment. No.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe something will come to me, but even if something does come to me, I think this is the best smart comedy I can think of. This is just, I love it so much. We got to talk about Peter Sellers in the movie, because guess what? This movie's called Dr. Strangelove. I bet you realize we're 40 minutes into this podcast. We haven't once mentioned the titular character of Dr. Strangelove.
Oh yeah, that's really funny to say, because I'm thinking to myself, for a movie called Dr. Strangelove, he's barely in this movie.
I don't exactly understand why myself. I have my theories. But I would say, I guess my one theory I'm thinking of why he's the titular character even though he only has like 2 or 3 scenes, I would say is because he's such a memorable character. And I think that comes into the fact that he's definitely the most cartoony character out of all of them. You know, you have General Buck Turgidson, you have Major King Kong, you have uh who's the other one I was thinking of? I guess Jack Ripper too. Like he's very absurd. But again, these are characters that I would have no issue believing would actually exist in real life. Obviously, not with the names General Jack D. Ripper and Buck Turgidson. Like those are not real names. But I absolutely believe a character like Buck Turgidson exists, where he's this like, high-ranking general who's like very war hungry, who's very manly and very just like kind of crazy. He also just has some of the best lines in the movie. But he's still a believable cartoony character. Same with General Ripper. Same with all these other characters. Dr. Strangelove, I'll give him this, I think toes the line the most, where he's like this absurdist ex-Nazi scientist. Now, I feel like at the time, this was definitely seen as very absurd, where it's just like, oh, he's this. Now, it's never explicitly stated that I think, well, actually, maybe it is, but it's kind of seen as a throwaway line because he's seen as like an ex-Nazi German scientist. He's a very German scientist, and, you know, it's a bunch of years after World War II. A lot of people would probably assume he was ex-Nazi. But, you know, the idea that he's working for the American government, that was probably seen as weird, where they're just like, oh, he used to be a Nazi, but he's working for the American government. But obviously years later, Operation Paperclip became real, or not became real. It became more aware, where people realized, oh no, this was real, because that did happen. After World War II, any Nazi scientist that wasn't rounded up and captured and shot and killed by the Soviets, the Americans took in and were like, hey, you work for us now. And so that's a real thing. Again, I'm not going to go into it because there's a whole lot of lore to that. But point is, Dr. Strangelove does seem like the most absurd character. And I feel like that's why he's the most memorable, and probably why he's the title of the movie, because it's to remind the audience that, yes, we're taking this very seriously, but we're kind of masking it to be like, oh, this could never happen in this way. But it's like, I don't entirely believe that, because I know Kubrick. I know he was taking this material very seriously, but kind of hiding the horrors behind that comedy. And that's why you have Dr. Strangelove at the forefront, to be like, oh, look at this funny ex-Nazi guy in a wheelchair. Isn't he hilarious? And he is hilarious. But it's to distract you from the greater horrors of what it's actually saying. And again, he gets some of the best scenes. I mean, again, he only has like 2 scenes. I'm pretty sure he only has like 2 scenes in the movie. That is his introduction, when they're like, hey, Dr. Strangelove, what do you think? And he rolls out in his wheelchair and he has his hand just like choking him. Or no, that's the second scene, when the hand is choking him. And before he gets up from the wheelchair and goes, Mein Führer, I can walk.
Nice. Yeah, Mein Führer, I can walk.
It's such a good
That's
line.
how it ends, and then it's just a bombing sequence. It's just like, oh, what? Okay, that's how it ends. All right, you just go, oh my god, I can walk, and then everybody fucking dies.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
I think I may be misremembering. I tried to look for this in the documentary and I couldn't. They didn't mention it, but I feel as though I heard, like some other time, that scene of him getting up wasn't scripted, and it just so happened, and they just kind of rolled with it because it was so funny, because he just randomly was like, Mein Führer, I can walk. Before you talk, there's another thing I wanted to mention that was not scripted that I have to bring up, and that's one of my favorite scenes, is when General Buck, George C. Scott, is like freaking out over something, and he like goes to run to the big board and he trips and falls, but he gets back up.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, I was gonna mention that.
Yeah, that was not supposed to happen. Like, George C. Scott actually tripped and fell while filming that scene, but they thought it was so funny and so within character, because he stays in character the whole time. Even though he trips and falls, he gets back up and starts pointing at the board while saying his lines as if nothing happened. And so they're like, well, we got to keep that in because that's funny. But again, realistically funny. Like, you can absolutely imagine this character like tripping over himself and getting back up, still pretending like nothing happened. He's just like, no, we got to keep going. And it just shows you how great of a performer George C. Scott was. Great actor. But also it's still within character of Buck Turgidson, General Turgidson. I love it. It's one of my favorite moments in the movie, and it wasn't originally in the script.
Okay, because I had no idea if you were gonna bring it up, because I was definitely just gonna bring it. By the way, it's just like, yeah, dude, I love that part. It's just, bro just fell over and just walks off like nothing happened, just continuing in the line.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Doctor Strangelove, played by Peter Sellers. Captain Mandrake, the British officer that's with General Ripper the whole time, that's Peter Sellers as well. And then the president is also Peter Sellers. So Peter Sellers plays 3 different characters in this movie, and they're all great. I love all 3 of them. Originally,
I'm pretty sure Bro knew. I'm pretty sure knew that. Yeah, he probably was gonna have a lot of screen time in Strangelove, so I was like, all right, I better have another actor I can play.
Yeah. Well, so originally he was supposed to also play a 4th character. He was gonna play Major King Kong in the movie, which is wild to me because I can't imagine anybody other than Slim Pickens in that role. But what happened was Peter Sellers, while filming as Major King Kong, got injured during a scene and refused to play him anymore. And so Kubrick and the casting director had to come up with somebody else. And so they hired Slim Pickens, who wasn't a huge actor at the time. Obviously, afterwards, he became a huge actor because he was in other stuff like Blazing Saddles and Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. So he became a very famous actor after that. I mean, with a name like Slim Pickens, he had to have been in a bunch of stuff. But anyway, he was not that big of a name. So when they hired him, how he acts as Major King Kong is just who he is as a person. And it's like, I love that because he is, like I said, I cannot imagine anybody other than Slim Pickens as Major King Kong.
Yeah, because I think that finale was like phenomenal in a way, because like, of course, because again, the people on that plane was not aware of the recall code.
Yes.
I guess like their like connections were like down, so like they couldn't get a hold of anyone.
It's
so
explained that they like get like shot at some point, and a lot of their tech on the plane gets damaged, so they can't properly get the recall code.
So they continue with the mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're about to head to their target, about to drop the bomb, right? But the doors would not open.
Mm-hmm.
And after so many like attempts, Conscious is like, all right, screw it, I'm going down there, opening it myself. And of course, he finds out it was a wiring problem, and he gets on top of one of the bombs. And he finally like fixes it, right? The bomb's open. I'm just like, oh shit, you better get out of there. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. I know where this is going. He's gonna ride it. And then it happens. I'm like, oh my god, let's go.
Yeah, it's one of the most famous scenes in the movie. And obviously we're using it as the backdrop here because it's, again, one of the most famous shots in the movie. It's just so Slim Pickens.
And I love like how Halloween and everything. And it's just I'm like, oh wait a minute, I've heard this sound effect before. And like in a shit and like on a, I think like, I don't know, it was like some sort of like I think it was like a Sonic sprite animation I think I heard from.
Maybe.
Like, yeah. I think it was like Oddball Crack-Ups, yeah.
That's funny.
But yeah, it was like an old sprite animation compilation thing someone made, I think like on Newgrounds, something like that. Yeah. Nostalgia. Yeah. Anyway, but no, I remember that. I'm just like, oh my god, this is how they're gonna end it, isn't it? All right.
Yeah. It is so funny. It's so funny and so badass just seeing him on the bomb, like flailing his cowboy hat, being like, yeah. It's like, you're gonna die, dude, but he doesn't care at that point. He's just like, woohoo.
Yeah, you're going out with a bang. What can I say?
Yeah, it's so good. Such a good scene. It's no wonder why it's the most famous scene in the movie. Yeah, no, just I guess a couple other little things I wanted to mention. I like that even though this is all America's fault in the movie, I like how this USSR, the Soviet Union, is also portrayed as pretty incompetent, because you have the Russian premier like talking to them, and he's just like, yeah, we also built a doomsday device, and they're like, we're just like, what do you mean also? Like, we didn't build one. He's like, our source with the New York Times. It's like, that's funny. Like, that's their sources for figuring out America's intel is the New York Times. But also, I like the president of Russia, or yeah, I guess he would be the president of Russia. You never see him. He's always on the phone, Dmitry. because I like how before you even talk to him, I like the way that the Russian premiere kind of describes him as like, you realize he is also a man. Like, you guys need to talk slowly with him. And he, because he's portrayed, even though you never see him, he's portrayed as this drunk. He's portrayed as kind of a loser, kind of this weirdo. But that's what makes it great. Like, he's still relatively realistic in that you never really see him, but you understand through like the phone conversations President Muffley is having with him. But I just love that he's also seen as a bit cartoonish, even though, America's at fault here. The Russians are no better. That's my point, is that I like, because that's what it was in the Cold War era. I feel like we have a lot of revisionism with the Cold War, where it's just like, oh, America was actually pretty shitty, which we were, admittedly. But then people kind of turn that around and be like, actually, Russia was super cool. It's like, no, they were not. They were not super cool during the Cold War. They were super uncool during the Cold War. I'll say that.
I think like one line I keep like thinking about when it comes to Dimitri, it was like, I'm sorry too, Dimitri. I'm very sorry, all right? You're sorrier than I am, but I'm sorry as well. I'm sorry as you are, Dimitri. Don't say you're more sorry than I am, because I'm capable of being just as sorry as you are. So we're both sorry, all right?
It's so good. So funny. And only Peter Sellers could have delivered it like that. He was such a good actor. Again, he's a British guy, and he played the American president so well. I'm like, I fully believe this dude. It's such an incredible actor. I'm so sad he's dead, but he died over 40 years ago. So, trying to think of other things I wanted to talk about. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about Dr. Strangelove?
I kind of like did, because I was like, because because we were talking about how like his hand was choking him earlier. I'm just like, yeah, bro's like a little bit autistic. His hand likes to get a little bit quirky sometimes, doing the hand raise.
I like that the hand moving on its own is never explained. You just have him like moving his hand all on its own. It's never explained. That just makes it even funnier. You can only imagine.
Kooky.
Yeah, he's a little kooky, exactly.
Actually, by the way, I was hearing his voice, and I'm just thinking, was this the inspiration from Barney in The Simpsons?
Yeah, maybe less German, obviously, because Barney's not German. He doesn't have that accent, but yeah, a bit of that like back of the throat kind of thing. But oh, mein Führer, I can kind of see that.
I'm fly, I can walk. Sound.
Yeah, I can't burp on command, but yeah, I can usually do a very good Barney, but my voice is so I don't want to do too much. I don't want to do nothing too fancy to my voice.
Okay, that's fine.
So yeah, Dr. Strangelove. Can I talk about this DVD a little bit? Unless you had something else you wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this DVD, it is a DVD.
Wait, you own the DVD?
Yeah, so it's a special edition Sony/Columbia Pictures DVD from like early 2000s, 2001 it looks like. Nice. I love it.
My favorite release year of Sony.
Yeah.
Releases.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Oh, dude, man, I figured this would be the other way around, because I'm actually the one who owns the Criterion release of this movie.
Yeah, I think you told me. Yeah, it was the Criterion Blu-ray you have, which rocks. That's cool. I'm glad it's in the Criterion collection.
Normally, it'd be the other way around, because you're the one that collects them the most.
Yeah,
and I'm the one that just collects the early Frizu releases.
Hey, look, I love
those ones. Just hits harder.
Yeah, look, I love to glaze Criterion as much as the next guy, but having it on this DVD means a lot more to me, because this is the DVD I grew up with. Because this is the one I originally watched with my dad. It's the one I've had the longest. It predates the official collection. Like, I took this from my family movie collection, because I'm like, I love this movie so much, and this is how I've watched it. Every time I've ever watched Dr. Strangelove has been through this DVD. And so this means the world to me.
To be fair, I kind of wanted to get the DVD as well, because I think I saw it like one time in Barnes & Noble, and then I didn't get my chance to get it. Then I think one time that I went to Barnes & Noble, I looked at the Criterion collection, I'm like, oh shit, Dr. Strangelove, perfect. This is exactly what I needed.
Yeah, I'm sure the Criterion collection version rocks unbelievably hard. I do not doubt that for a second. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I think this DVD means a lot more to me, and so I want it on this DVD. Would I ever own the
Oh, yeah, I
Criterion
don't want to.
Collection?
I mean, if you want to.
Maybe it's not. It would not be a high priority of mine. Like there are other movies I would rather own first, before owning the Criterion of Doctor Strangelove. And it was also really cool because I got to see the what is it? Inside the Making of Doctor Strangelove. That's the documentary I watched. I have it logged on Letterboxd. For anybody interested in watching it. Um, it was really cool because it was a late '90s, early 2000s documentary. So it had a very History Channel aura to it, but not like Ancient Aliens History Channel, like actual legit. Oh, this is actually interesting to learn about History Channel kind of vibe. I highly recommend it. It was actually very interesting to hear. Like I said, I learned a lot about the making of the movie through that. Um, and yeah, so one other thing I wanted to mention, I had said this earlier, how this the episode we're doing right now for this was not the idea I had in mind for eventually tackling Doctor Strangelove, but I'm glad we did with the next movie. We'll get to the next movie when we do. I just wanted to mention that when I think of Doctor Strangelove, I brought up the other movie earlier, Failsafe. I've always wanted to do a Doctor Strangelove and Failsafe episode. That can obviously happen again. You know, I'm not opposed to doing Doctor Strangelove again. Any chance to
Hey, man,
rewatch this
I'm
movie.
down for it.
Yeah, because I really want more people to watch Failsafe because that. So when I was in college, freshman year of college, first semester freshman year of college, so like literally the very beginning. Um, for my midterm, no, not my midterm. My midterm was on Dark City movie you and me talked about.
Yep.
For my final, it was my final. Yes, my final was on comparing and contrasting Doctor Strangelove to Failsafe because I forget exact specifics for the assignment for our final for that class, but my teacher was, I think one of them was like, take two movies and compare and contrast them. I think that literally was it, and like write a paper on that. And so I was thinking like, oh, what two very similar movies can I do? Because a lot of those exist. There are very similar movies out there. Not just similar in that like similar in the sense of A Bug's Life versus Ants, similar, where these two movies with very similar concepts come out around the same time. That's what I was trying to aim for. So I looked those up and I found Doctor Strangelove, and I knew that movie. I'm like, oh, I'm familiar with that movie, and even though I didn't like it, I should probably rewatch it. And obviously, I rewatched it for this final, and I'm like, oh, it fucking rocks. But discovered what Failsafe was. I had never even heard of this movie, Failsafe, before this, and so watching it, I was like, whoa, this kind of rules. Like, I love Failsafe, even though it's very similar to Doctor Strangelove, but only really in basic concept from like afar. When you go into like the little nitty-gritty details of Failsafe, it is a very, very different experience. It's not funny. It is not a funny movie. It is a dead serious movie, but it rules. I highly recommend people check it out. Again, some other time because we do not have time to talk about Failsafe. So I'll just say that maybe someday we'll do that as a double feature. But as for this episode, as for this Doctor Strangelove discussion, I'm keeping this DVD. Duh, because like I said, it is one of my all-time favorite Kubrick films. It's just one of my all-time favorite films in general. Like, I love this movie to death. And so I'm glad I'm able to spread the word on it. I'm glad other people are watching it. So even if you didn't like it, Robyn, I'm glad you at least, gave it a chance, and I hope you give it another chance some other time.
Oh, hold on. I did like it.
Oh, you did.
4 stars.
Yeah, 4 star. That's true. That's true. I was thinking like you were saying like, oh, I wasn't really digging it the whole time. I'm like, but you gave it 4 stars.
Well,
but then I forgot. Yeah.
At first, but
Yes.
I liked it a lot better
Right.
as it went on.
Yes.
Because like it wasn't click with me at first, and then the distractions, the fan happened, and then after all that, it's just like, okay, well, okay, I get it now.
No, this is your Interstellar. You hate it, just like I hate Interstellar. I think Interstellar.
This is your anti-Interstellar, right? You went from hating it to liking it, just how you went from Interstellar to liking it to hating it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hate Interstellar. It's the worst piece of shit ever. I gave it half a star.
Just like I hate Tenet. I hate Tenet.
Yeah. No, this is definitely.
The Argylle episode with my Tenet crush might be one of my favorite
Yeah.
on this show.
So good, so good. But yeah, no, Doctor Strangelove is definitely a very good example of a movie I didn't like at first that then I learned to love. Like that has happened, you know. Like we've talked about movies like Tenet, like Interstellar, where I watch it at first and then I end up hating it the second time around. But the opposite does exist, where it's a movie I didn't like the first time around that then I love the second time around. Doctor Strangelove is a very good example of that. Another example that is very good of that is Eraserhead, the David Lynch movie. Like that is a movie I did not like the first time I watched it. Second time around, love the hell out of it. So, you know what? There's second chances are important, people. That's the theme of today's episode.
Tell me there's a life learning lesson with each of these episodes?
No, not every episode. You know, sometimes the lesson is William made me watch something stupid.
What was it this time?
I don't know. What was the last William episode? The last William episode was the Meg episode. No, that was Yinsid's fault. So
everybody say thanks, Yinsid.
Thank you, Yinsid.
Thank you, Yinsid.
Do we want to move on to the next Nolan film?
Well, I mean, you did say Peter Sellers was British, so I mean, I guess that does remind me of a British film we have to talk about.
Mm-hmm. And there it is, Following. So, Robyn, it has been forever since we did a Nolan film. The last one we
Has
did.
it?
The last one we did was Insomnia, and that was way back in August. So, not totally forever ago, but I feel like it has been a while, and I feel like I needed another entry in the Nolan-ology for sure. And I'm glad we combined this movie with Doctor Strangelove. Not only was it an excuse to introduce you to Kubrick, which was awesome, I think the reason we combined these two is because they're both black and white films. Am I correct in remembering that?
Well, I wanted to watch Clerks, but no, you didn't want to do that.
Oh yeah, Clerks. Oh well.
Fuck you. And then maybe we could have done the fail-safe Strangelove duo episode, but no. No, you chose to do this instead. No, we'll never be able to talk about Strangelove again with fail-safe. Thanks, Hal.
To quote Principal Skinner, so Mother was right. It is my fault.
No, it's the children who are wrong. Am I so out of touch? No, the children that are wrong.
All right. So, Following, Christopher Nolan's first movie. That's crazy.
You're telling me Argylle wasn't directed by Nolan?
Argylle was not directed by Nolan. No, it was.
And what the fuck was that all about with ZP and Evermore then?
Well, Argylle was ZP and Evermore's idea. They were like, hey, I think both of them at one point were just like, hey, can I do an Argylle episode? And I'm like, why not both? And so then we did that. That's why we did the Argylle episode.
I know.
Oh, classic.
I think I was like joking like how like this guy's like a bit of like a Nolan / Shyamalan. Like there's like such Nolan / Shyamalan twists with Argylle.
Mm-hmm. But not as
especially
good
with the fact that
Nolan.
Yeah, I think especially with like the idea that like R. Kelly or
yeah, R. Kelly.
Yeah, Argylle is the actual Argylle himself, and just the Argylle character is a fiction and all that shit. It's like, yeah, that seems like something out of like a Nolan film.
Yeah,
like with like some.
Now, to be honest, I think Following had a much better twist. Controversial opinion. I think it had a better twist than Argylle. I'll say that.
No, yeah.
Because
it's actually like. Because, like, it's like, well, with Argylle, it's like funny bad sort of shtick with us. Here it's like, okay, this is like an actually decent film.
Yes. Oh yeah. I had seen this initially. I want to say a couple years back, maybe 2020, I think, if I remember correctly. Um, and I did not remember a thing about this movie. I remember being kind of positive towards it, but not being that interested in it. Um, I honestly liked it a lot more this time around. Not enough that I rose my score, because I think there are those things that are holding it back from being truly amazing. But I got to say, the fact that this is Nolan's first is really impressive. The dude was meant to make movies if this was his first movie. It's like sometimes you watch some directors' first movies and you're like, okay. But then you see their later stuff and you're like, oh, eventually they improved. But sometimes you watch a first movie and you're like, dude, this was your first movie when you hit the ground running. Like, okay, you're on to something. Obviously, this is not my favorite first feature film director. Whether I would either say maybe Edgar Wright's Shaun of the Dead, or maybe Robert Edger's The Vivitch would be my favorite debut films. But even then, like, that's them directing shorts or like television or other things before they got to feature length films. I guess Nolan did direct like a short film before this, but it was like what, one short film before this, or maybe a couple student films. I'm not entirely sure on the ideas, but I know
Are you
this.
talking about Nolan short films?
Yeah, Nolan short films. He did do a couple shorts, didn't he?
Actually, yes, because I actually did log one of them last night, because on the following Criterion copy that I own,
Mm-hmm.
it does have the short film Doodlebug,
Okay.
which is about a guy trying to get an insect that's crawling around his room, only to realize it's a miniature version of himself, and then he squashes it, and then there's a bigger version of him that squashes him, and it's just oh, it's okay.
Oh, that's
It's
kind
it's
of heady.
it's it's like a weird. What's that?
I said that's kind of heady.
Yeah, it's kind of. I guess so, but it's also just kind of like, it's also kind of like really weird and just kind of looks. It looks. And the moment I saw the big head, I was like, oh god, that looks so shit posty. I can't even take this seriously.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Yeah, so clearly
But
this
yeah,
is
I wrote for Webbox, which is like, oh, it's all in his head.
okay.
Also, use like the car zooming in my neighborhood right now. I'm recording in my Jeep.
Yeah. So with following, this definitely feels like a very first kind of movie, because you see the elements that Nolan would definitely perfect as he went along, but the fact that he
Yeah.
has these ideas is impressive nonetheless. I really enjoyed watching this time around. I think I was able to pick up on a little more, and I think the concept as is really interesting. It's not something I feel like anybody else could have come up with but Nolan himself. And so that's why I really enjoyed it. Um I guess to start off, some things to point out: it's in black and white, only really because it would have been cheaper at the time, because Nolan is not he wasn't the big Hollywood director he eventually became at that time. So really, when it comes to budget, he could only really afford black and white films. So you make that film in black and white, um, which is fine. I think the cinematography can still look really good. Again, budget, uh, contextually, when you're thinking about it budget wise, I think it looks good. Can get a little weird, a little too shaky cam at times, um, but I think overall, I think the movie does look the part enough to make me interested.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Why don't you say something? Just what did you think of following?
Well, good news. It was better than Tenet.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
Because I think because I remember I think we always kept saying how I think at the time, I think Following was probably Nolan's weakest film,
Hmm.
and I mean, well, it still kind of is, because it's again, it's his first film. Of course, not everyone's
Yeah.
gonna get it right on their first attempt of
Of
making a
course.
film, of course.
Of course.
But this, I mean, at least I was able to follow along with this a lot better than Tenet. And of course, it was just it was 70 minutes long. It's it doesn't take forever to sit through.
It doesn't
So it's
overstay
it's
its
an easy
welcome.
watch.
Yeah, it's a very easy
Exactly.
watch. Yeah, yeah. So for that, I think it is much better than Tenet. I feel like Tenet is kind of Nolan's ego getting the best of him and thinking he can make something so confusing and still be praised for it, and it didn't work out in his favor. Which case, that's, but again, not to, say the dude, then he did make up for it because then he made Oppenheimer, which was far, far better. Whereas I feel like Following is made by a guy with zero ego. That's the, that's,
Yeah.
that's the sense you get when watching the movie, because again, like we said, this is his first time. He's not going to have an ego about him because he doesn't know what he's going to be, what people are going to think about his vision. So he's just putting himself out there with that. And yeah, I just really like a lot of the, because a lot of it does seem kind of like heady and a lot of very philosophical, but not in a pretentious way. I never felt as though this movie went too far and became too pretentious. Because you do have, the story is that, you have the main character, Bill. I think he's credited as the man or something like that, which was
Yeah,
very,
like I noticed
very
like
Tenet
on the
like.
Criterion like slip and like on the Criterion slip, like they don't like because like the guy I think either goes by Bill or Daniel Lloyd,
Mm-hmm.
but like here it's just like he's just credited as like the young man
Yeah.
character. It's just like okay, so I'll just call him Bill.
Yeah, which is
Just go
weird
with that.
because they explicitly say his name is Bill, but then they credited him as the young man. Like, you said what his name was. This isn't like the protagonist in Tenet, where you actively don't have a name for him. You just call him the protagonist.
Yeah, or just I don't know the actor's name. But
Yeah. But then you have Cobb, who is like the guy he starts to follow. So that's how the movie starts. He talks about how Bill talks about how he's a struggling writer, and one thing he does in his free time is he quote unquote follows people. Not in a creepy way, not in a sexual way. He just follows people to see their daily lives, and then he just leaves them alone. He never interacts with them, and that is a very, very interesting thing. Like, I never thought about that, like somebody following me, but not in a creepy way, just following somebody just to see where they're going. And he even says, like, one of the rules he has is if I ever find out where they live, I just abandon them. I never follow them again, because then that's going too far. um so then one day he ends up following Cobb, and Cobb in turn follows back. And so then he gets caught up in the world of Cobb. And Cobb is a burglar. He's a thief. He goes into people's houses, he steals their stuff, but he has a bit of a weird philosophy with how he steals things. He and Cobb, that's what makes Cobb, probably, I would say Cobb is the best character in the movie. Do you agree, disagree?
I guess yeah.
Yeah,
I want to say why, but like again, like I don't want to like say just yet because spoilers.
okay, yeah, we won't get into spoilers just yet. But Cobb he's a thief, and he's unapologetic about being a thief. But what's great is that he is a very charismatic kind of guy, and I think the actor, even though again this is a very low budget film, and I looked it up, I don't think the actor was ever in anything else. I think this was like his main credit in things he was in. At least according to the letterbox, he's only credited for being in this movie. I thought he did a really good job for what he was given. He never went too far where it was like student film levels of cringy, but I feel like he could have became a genuine actor in things. Like, he could have been in other Nolan films, and it's kind of a shame he was only in this.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, I love how he kind of explains his philosophy with robbing people, is that he knows it's shitty behavior. But what he's doing is he's kind of talking about how he can like tell someone just by their house, just by their apartment. And that's why, the first thing they go to rob is that couple's apartment. And he's going over like all this stuff, like, oh, people have a box with trinkets and stuff, and that, and like, psychologically what that means about them, and just talking about like, oh, how they arrange their apartment, how these people are. Like, he knows who these people are without ever even really meeting them, until the lady does walk in. She comes home, and she's not making that big of a deal out of it, and then they realize, oh, she's not with her significant other, and so she wouldn't want to make a big deal out of it. And so now it raises like this really interesting character moment where they're just like, oh, there's this lady coming home with somebody who's not her husband or boyfriend, and you're like, oh, that's actually quite interesting. But it never really goes beyond that because that's not what the movie's about. But it's still like this very interesting character moment that you're just like, oh, like the rest of the characters that aren't the main characters, they're still characters at the end of the day. They're still living, breathing humans. They're not just background characters who are just like plain NPCs, you know?
No, wait, it actually makes a lot more sense because I'm remembering that scene now. Because I think like Kyle was like saying like once they were like because they were like covering up or they're playing like, oh yeah, we're like from like the agency and stuff like that, and they immediately like walk out like that, and he goes to the guy like, oh, you must be the man of the house, congrats, you have a lovely home and all that. And then I think like after like they escape, he was saying like, when I said that, he didn't have much of a reaction or anything like that. He didn't like respond to that.
Yeah.
So like something must be up.
And again,
that
like,
makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, and again, they're just because Bill's freaking out. He's like, we weren't supposed to be there, and that's when Cobb makes it a point where he's like, okay, well, apparently she wasn't supposed to be there either. Even though she owns the place, she knows she's not supposed to be there because she's not supposed to be with the guy she was with, and so it adds like this really extra layer where you're like, oh fuck, like that's insane. Again, it's these little moments that Nolan throws throughout the movie that I was really thinking about. Even if the big picture can be a little wonky, because again, it is his first time directing a movie, a lot of the little details had me thinking about how these characters live their lives and who they are as people. There's this really insignificant moment in the movie that I think about a lot ever since watching it. And it's the scene when Bill goes to the bar, when he first meets the lady. It's not even, again, it's very insignificant in the grand scheme of the movies. It's when he walks up to the bar and orders a beer, and the bartender puts a beer bottle on the bar, and then goes to reach for a glass, but Bill goes right for the beer bottle itself and starts drinking out of the bottle. And so then when the bartender realizes he's already drinking out of the bottle, he puts the glass back. And I love that moment because at first I'm thinking, oh, that says a lot about the bartender. He's this guy who works this job. He has a system. He has a set system because a lot of the patrons of this bar have a set system where they order a beer, they get it in the bottle, but then they take the bottle and they pour it in the glass. So that's how he's operating under that assumption that that's how Bill works. But Bill comes in, immediately goes right for the bottle. He's not looking for any fancy glass. He is not somebody there who should be there. So he just drinks right from the bottle. And that kind of catches the bartender off guard, but he already paid for the beer. So it's like, whatever, I don't really actually care. So he just puts the glass back because it is something that is very insignificant in the grand scheme of things, whether you drink the beer out of the bottle or out of the glass. But it's still a very interesting moment because yes, Bill shouldn't be there because he shouldn't be in this situation to begin with. He's talking with these people he shouldn't be interacting with in general, but yet he's still there, still drinking the beer, and still meets up with the lady, and thus the rest of the movie progresses. So again, very insignificant on the surface, but I've just been thinking about that moment all week because it is just so interesting. Why did Nolan include it? Why would you have this moment if not for it to be significant? You know, I'm always thinking about the significance in scenes in movies. So if it doesn't seem significant, if it doesn't seem vital to the story, why was it put there? Why was the scene put there? It's to really get you to know the characters a little more.
Yeah, I guess I never like thought that there was a little bit of importance to that one small scene, but like, yeah, I can kind of see what you're coming from with that.
I may be overanalyzing it too. I may sound crazy, but it's just something I haven't stopped thinking about. I just think about that scene a lot.
You're fine. You're fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
But yeah, like, but then
I mean, you might have a point with that, yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting to think about the class dynamic with that.
I mean, like, yeah, I think like in a way, like, yeah, you kind of, I mean, you kind of make sense because like, well, the thing is that there's this mafia, or like mob that this bald, they all love him as the bald guy, which the lady is dating around the time that technically owns the bar. So you think like that everyone that comes in that's like either associated with him or or like or the bar and how it runs. They
Mhm.
figure they like like the status quo is like order beer, have it be done in a glass, but then you have this random individual that is like never been here before or like ain't around here usually, just comes in, just drinks it out of the bottle.
Yeah. As if he's like disrupting the system. But in the grand scheme of things, he's not. He's playing into exactly what he's supposed to be doing. Because, as we find out with the lady, even though, so the lady, I think she has a name. I keep calling her the lady, but what is her name again?
I don't even think I don't think she does have a name. She's just labeled as the blonde.
The blonde. Yeah. A lot of people in the reviews section on Letterboxd take issue with that, where they're just like, oh, Nolan always didn't know how to write women from the very beginning. It's like, okay, look, has he written some non-interesting female characters in the past? Yes. Does that mean every female character he's ever written is bad? I don't think so. I like Rachel in the Dark Knight movies. I like Emily Blunt's character in Oppenheimer. Like, why are we? Why I love Carrie Ann Moss in Memento. Like, why are we?
Yeah.
Saying. Why are we kind of just saying
What
this?
are you on about?
Why are we saying this grand statement to apply to everything he's made, rather than just saying, oh, occasionally he doesn't write a very strong character. Guess what? He's also written like male characters as not that great. Like, case in point, the protagonist in Tenet.
Actually, I think what I wanted to talk about was I think like with this Nolan's like this being first movie, I can tell like definitely there was a lot of inspiration that came from this that went into Memento because in a
Mm,
way this movie does play a bit out of order. Hell, I
yes.
can say that for like both the inspiration between Memento and Oppenheimer because Oppenheimer is also a story. It is directed also somewhat out of order, I believe,
Yes. Oh yeah. Oppenheimer,
or like it goes.
Memento. Yeah.
Well, okay, actually, I think in a way it's like so with following, it splits the part, like it switches like the parts of a bit together. Like it tells like it's, I think it does something like a bit like really like Oppenheimer. It's like it tells a bit, there's a snippet of the story being told like within the past, and then there's a snippet being told of like within like the futures aspect of it,
Mm-hmm,
and to
mm-hmm.
where all like come in between like in the middle of like how it ended up to be this way.
Yeah.
And of course just trying to you're just going back and forth with the story, it takes you from one part of the timeline of the story to like the later half of it, and then just goes back and forth with it. And Oppenheimer I think does that the same way as well.
Mm-hmm.
At least like I think there's like I think there's like three. I think it was like there's like three like different like separate like storylines that goes on with it. Like it tells the story from like the past. I think with how Oppenheimer makes the bomb and how it works. And then I think there's like um I want to say maybe like the present era with like Oppenheimer in that like one room talking with like the other people in that round table. And I think there's the future, I think, in the black and white aspect, I believe, where it's
Yes.
like the courtroom trial and Robert Downey Jr. and all that jazz.
Yeah. Yeah. So with stuff like Oppenheimer and Memento, the out of order storytelling is intentional in a way that, the way the story is told, the way the story of Oppenheimer is told, the way it flows naturally, it's only told naturally, so it has to be told out of order, so then that like narrative emotion can flow perfectly, and it works. Memento, same thing. That movie works because it's told out of order. um when you have something like Following, the out of order storytelling, it feels more gimmicky, where it's like, oh, we can tell the story out of order because that's not how you would normally do it, rather than it it enhances the movie. Like something like Oppenheimer and Memento, you could tell out of order and it kind of loses a little bit of its sauce, whereas I feel like if you watch Following in order, I don't think it's going to change either way. If anything, I think it makes it a little bit more easier to follow along, to follow along.
Exactly.
Haha.
That's why I watched it 2 times last night because I watched it normally. I
Mm-hmm.
actually did like watch it like before like we did the podcast. I figured I'd just do it just a refresher. But I did watch it a second time because the Criterion release of this does offer you a linear cut of the movie.
That rules.
I think the only problem is that I could not turn on the subtitles for it because it didn't give me that option. So I had
Really?
to turn. I think that's why I turned off the fan so I can hear it a bit better. And that's what led to the Doctor Strange incident.
That Doctor Strangelove incident. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know why
Doctor
they would.
Strangelove incident.
I don't know why they wouldn't include subtitles for that version, but I guess whatever. That
I don't
takes up
know.
space
I
on the
guess I
boost.
consider it as like a bone. I think I guess they consider it as
Sure.
a bonus feature or some
Yeah.
shit like that. I
Yeah.
don't know.
All right. Yeah. I
Because
guess I can see
I
that.
tried messing with like the audio functions like on the pop up menu. Like there's an option for a commentary, but like I didn't hear anything.
Okay. Yeah. That's weird. But
Yeah.
that's awesome that it gives you the choice, because I feel like with this movie, the out of order storytelling doesn't really enhance it in any way. Like when I think of, again, Memento and Oppenheimer, the out of order storytelling works to its advantage, where it's like I can't imagine this movie being told any other way. Whereas with this, again, it feels too gimmicky. It feels more so the fact that Christopher Nolan was just like, "Oh, I can do this because I want to do it," rather than it benefiting the story.
Well, I think on my first watch, like I think like, I understand it a bit,
Yeah.
like a bit more, because like I was able to focus on it, because like it tells a story, doesn't like overstay its welcome, because like again, it's like it's an hour and 10 minute of a film,
Hmm.
and it's like so like I was able to understand it first. And I think on the second rewatch, it's just like I think I felt a bit more confused because I was trying to refresh it, but also again I was kind of a bit distracted because I was also in a Discord VC.
Yeah. I
couldn't.
even though I've seen this movie twice and I've seen it both times, the out of order cut, I feel like if I watched it in order, I'd be able to follow it along just as well. In which case, the out of order storytelling just wouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I'm glad Nolan, even though it didn't work for following, I'm glad he kept up the idea of telling his stories out of order in future films. Again, with Memento and with Oppenheimer, I'm glad he didn't stop. I'm glad he was like, no, there is something to this way of storytelling, because again, Memento rocks. It totally works in that kind of storytelling, and so I'm glad he kept that up. I'm glad this didn't discourage him from doing it again.
Well, I think with like Memento, it's like it's not mostly out of order. It's just the story just being told backwards.
Right, but
That's
again,
all there is.
it's still not a traditional sense of telling your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do we want to talk about the twist now of following? Spoilers for following.
Yes, sir.
So the twist is that Cobb was not a good guy. Um, but to go into more of that, he was always playing Bill. Like he was always playing Bill, because so the way it's said is that one of the apartments he entered to steal from, he found a dead body, and so then he just left. But he was spotted going into that build going in and out of that apartment, and so then the police questioned him. Now, he definitely didn't kill this woman, but it is very suspicious. And if they found out that he's a burglar and that he's robbing places, I mean, whether or not he did it, he's gonna get pinned for it one way or another. And so he has to kind of groom Bill into this life of burglary, so then he can kind of make the police kind of get him off his trail and onto Bill's. And Bill falls for it hook, line, and sinker. And the blonde, she was just kind of there to help Cobb in his narrative, and he ends up killing her in the end and blaming it all on Bill. And by the end, Bill just looks like the most like the most credible the most credible suspect out of all their suspects. And so by the end, Bill is the one arrested and pinned for, and Cobb gets away scot-free. It is a little weird,
Dude,
the reveal.
that is it's such a really like dark ending for a
Oh yeah.
Nolan film, because like here because like what I've learned with like Nolan's films is like I think I said this like in my first review of Following when I first watched it, because it's like because like probably with every way like how Nolan's films like ends, mostly like his original stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's always that I guess like a more like I guess it kind of just leaves like the audience like a bit open of like what could like happen next. But like there's
Yes.
just like it's just like it leaves you like in a bit more of it leaves you on a very hopeful or yet bittersweet kind of like open ending, and just leaves you to figure out what happens next on your own.
Yeah.
Like I don't think like it's like okay, like this could like this story's kind of like open to see it where it can continue without even being like an actual sequel. Like Interstellar, for example. Like I think that
Mhm.
had like a very open ending.
Yeah.
Of Matthew Conway's character, going out to find uh who fuck I forgot her name. Shit.
Anne Hathaway. Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on, bear with me.
And
Anne Hathaway's character, yeah,
yeah,
because she's stranded on a planet somewhere, and it's just. But yep,
yeah, no, Interstellar definitely I would say is one of the more positive endings for a Nolan film. You would have stuff, but like I would say, yeah, bittersweet is very much a way to describe a lot of his endings. You have the ending of Memento where it's kind of open ended as to whether or not he actually finds his wife's killer, but he's going to continue anyway. There's a bit of bittersweetness to that where you're just like, oh, he'll get it, but also he might have already found it, or left very open ended. Something like Insomnia, Al Pacino dies, but it's still seen as a positive ending because he caught Robin Williams, and Hilary Swank was made to be the better cop in all of that. Then you have something like Prestige. That's very bittersweet because Hugh Jackman dies, but at least Christian Bale gets to live out his life. Um,
yeah, his twin also dies
yeah.
as
So
well.
that scene is
I
bitter.
mean, that one's actually a bit more. That one's a bit like bit dark, but like there's
Yes,
some sort of like
it's still dark.
satisfactory in it, I
Yeah,
guess.
absolutely. There's satisfaction in that.
But um,
Inception's very kind of open ended and bittersweet. Then Dunkirk, I feel
yes,
like
I
is
was gonna
seen.
say just like the way it ends, just like
Yeah, ends
uh,
ends on the spinning top.
I forgot how Dunkirk ends.
Well,
Honestly,
Dunkirk ends. I mean, Dunkirk
yeah, that's
ends
spinning.
with with a lot of the characters making it out, but it it's still the middle of the war. They're nowhere near done with the war, so that is bitter. That is seen as very, very bitter. But
Yeah.
at least some of these characters we've been following along were able to make it out. Um, Tenet ends kind of
Hell, like
positively.
even the dark. Yeah, that's true. I was also thinking of. I was about to say like maybe like Dark Knight films as well, especially like the
Dark Knight.
first Dark Knight as well. Like
Oh yeah,
if Rise did not like exist, like I think that's just the way to perfectly end the film, or just like that story in general,
oh yeah.
and
Batman
just see
Begins
where it
and
goes from
Dark
there on
Knight.
your imagination.
Dude, Batman Begins and Dark Knight is like the perfect duology. I'll talk about Dark Knight Rises someday. Trust me, I have a lot to say about it. Okay, so yeah, going through all
I
of
mean, I
these,
also kind of like how Rises, and it also has that open kind of sort of like deal to it.
right?
I want to
Yeah,
say why, but
right.
yeah.
Well, we'll get to it.
But no, like here's just like this is a very like defeated ending for like
Yes,
our protagonist character. Like he is pinned.
yes,
Like there is like no way like redemption to like actually find Cobb. Like no, he's actually like cornered.
yeah.
He has in like I feel like with the car with the credit cards, like shit, that's the final nail in the coffin. His
Oh yeah,
writing's on it.
yeah,
So like he cannot pin it on Cobb as much as he can, and Cobb got away with it, and it's like, damn,
yeah. No, I can definitely see this being the most.
that's fucked up.
Yeah, this is absolutely the most, like, the darkest Nolan ending. I think that's fair. I think the one that comes closest would have to be Oppenheimer. That's also very dark, but even still, it has a very bitter. It
Yeah.
is more bittersweet, Oppenheimer. But I would say out of all of them, I think it's the closest one to reaching the darkness that this reaches. But this absolutely is the darkest one. Yeah, maybe Nolan needs to do another
I mean,
movie
if we
where it's like
think
a
about
straight up dark
Bill
ending.
for yeah, I was actually I was saying on my letterbox review, like I think like like if we forget about Bill for a second, um, oh yeah, like I said, like this was the striking defeat for the audience and to Bill, probably
Hmm.
because this is the only time a Nolan film has a more villain protagonist.
Yeah, which that rocks. Cobb rocks, man. It's so good that it's so cool that he gets away with it all in the end. It's so awesome.
Yeah, wild stuff.
Wild stuff. I
Also,
like I said, I
I also
liked it a lot more.
oh yeah, most definitely. No, actually, I think what I didn't like realize, like when I watch on like when I was rewatching it, when I also read the synopsis on Wikipedia just to get a better, clearer story. Basically, Cobb was actually working for the bald man. He was actually one of his members, actually, as it turns
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And I think he was ordered to take the blonde girl out actually because of him, because she witnessed that murder of the guy, bringing this one dude into her basement and smash his fingers and then smash his skull open.
Yeah, but then again, Cobb used that to his advantage, where he used her for his own purposes, and then when he no longer needed her, he just killed her.
Fuck.
Like we said, super dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm glad. I'm happy it goes super dark. I think a lot more movies need to be less afraid with being dark in their endings. You can have happy endings. Absolutely. I'm not saying, oh, no movie should ever have a happy ending. Like, no, absolutely, movies should have happy endings. It's just when a movie calls for a much darker ending, I think more movies should take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah, Doctor
I like
Strangelove
it
has a dark ending.
when my yes, but like with the way like with the film acts, like you with the way how the film acts, like you kind of forget like how dark it is, and it's just like you just think how it just ends in a very chaotic and funny way with like Kong riding the missile, he's as the crash lands,
Yeah,
and of course everyone's just like casually just thinking, well, shit,
yeah,
might as well go into shelter and all that,
yeah.
and
No,
then it just ends with like and so I was like, oh my god, I can walk.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's dark, but in a way that with a smile. It's dark with a smile, whereas this is like dark with a oh fuck, like that sort of dark. So they're very different versions of a dark ending, but I think they're both dark endings nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, I watched Doodlebug because it was on the following DVD as a bonus feature, and the same guy that was like, the guy, that's trying to squish the insect, that turns out, it's a miniature version of himself. That's the same guy who, of course, plays the young man.
Right. So yeah,
Because like this one was kind of like made like I think around the same time as Following, and this would be like the same crew and all that would like begin working with him with Nolan on the Following. Yeah.
right. Okay, cool. Yeah, early Nolan collaborator. That's cool.
I also learned he also has a cameo in Batman Begins.
No kidding.
Yeah, he is believable. What the fuck? Why? What did he? No. What? Okay, I'm looking at the actor list on here for Jerry Theobald. I think that's his name.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Tenet. What is he in Tenet?
He was Mr. Tennant.
Stewart. He plays a guy named Stewart. Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember his character in Tenet.
I don't remember either. I don't know either, bro.
Crazy.
Whatever.
Whatever. I'll say this. I definitely want to own Following now. After rewatching it, I was like, yeah, this rocks. I again, it's not my favorite Nolan film. But I think it is one that I would absolutely want to watch again. And so I want to add it to my collection. And from the sounds of it, this Criterion DVD, Blu-ray, whatever, sounds awesome.
I've like been like trying to like search for like the original like early 2000 like release of this because like Sony like along with Memento, Sony also did release this under their catalog.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh wow, look at that. Yeah.
I've been trying to like hunt for that down, but like I have had no luck for it. Probably have to buy it online somewhere.
Yeah, it looks like it's. Oh wow, it's like on Amazon for $4. Wow, interesting.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, but it's probably used, but sometimes that doesn't really matter.
Oh yeah.
Are you thinking of keeping this? I mean, from the sounds of it, you probably are.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Most stuff I'm probably just gonna keep because like this is the best way I can like access it and stuff like that, and like.
I mean, it is on YouTube for free. That's how I watched it.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was thinking like, yeah, isn't this? I think it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't even label it as that. Or, like.
It is labeled.
Oh yeah, yeah. Where to watch?
Yeah.
I can stream it on Mubi, whatever that is.
Oh, Mubi. Yeah. No, that's the that's pretentious cinephile Tubi. Well, no, not at all. No, it's a streaming service for cinephiles where like a lot of it's other Criterion channel, where it's a bunch of very hoity-toity famous foreign films are, or the kind of cinephile movies, very deep, very artsy kind of movies are on there. That's where The Substance is streaming. So that's how a lot of people watch that. That's how I
Yeah,
watched
and
it.
I noticed that like I saw like that logo like on the DVD like I'd see like in stores. I
Yeah.
also know that's like the one place you'd see like this Hamlet at okay, please tell me, are you aware of this movie called Grand Theft Hamlet?
Grand Theft Hamlet. I've never heard of this. What
It
is
is
that?
a I've so like from what I've heard, this is a recreation of Hamlet done on GTA 5.
And that's not a YouTube video? That's a fucking movie exclusive?
I I was hearing stuff saying like this is this was a theatrical film at some point or something like that.
That's insane. Yeah, no, that sounds like a YouTube video. Like, oh, we recreated
I know
this
it
movie in
does.
Roblox or something like that, or we recreated this movie in Minecraft. It's like you recreated Hamlet in GTA 5.
You can watch it on Prime Video.
Oh
It's like
wow. That's bizarre.
what?
Because that is prime YouTube content. I could absolutely see that being for free on YouTube, but no, I guess I have to pay for it on Mubi. That's insane. Well, what crazy times we're living in.
All right.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that you're keeping following. And then I guess it's streaming on Mubi. That's cool too, I guess. But yeah, is there anything last minute we want to talk about following before we wrap things up?
I thought at one point it was also on Tubi.
I don't know. I get maybe at one point it was. That sounds likely.
Okay, I did check. It is still free on YouTube.
Yeah, it's still free on YouTube because that's how I watched it.
Wait, what?
But yeah, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, no, it still is. No, I thought for the way you sounded like that, as if I sound like as if you just got my message about me saying like I don't know if it's like still on Tubi or not because I know I thought at one point it was.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was because I don't remember watching it on Tubi.
Well, I mean, on YouTube, so you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, no,
Ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
and so is Memento. Hooray!
Really? Memento's on YouTube? I didn't know that.
Yeah, free with ads.
Nice.
I thought I could have sworn I said it at one. I thought I saw I mentioned that at one point.
Maybe at some point you did. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, people go watch Memento or following. Doesn't matter.
You have no choice now.
Yeah. Following. Good movie. I liked it.
Well, good. So did I.
Yeah. Man, that
Better than Tenet.
I can agree to that wholeheartedly. Very much better than Tenet. Yeah, no, but that's crazy though, because after this, we have like I want to say 3 more Nolan episodes to consider, because what we have left is Inception, the Dark Knight trilogy. I want it to be its own thing. Like I want the Dark Knight trilogy to be its own episode. And then
yeah,
obviously we're in a post Odyssey announcement, so we got to wait for the Odyssey to be to come out. So that's his next one. So that's at least 3 more episodes that we can confirm for the Nolanology. So crazy.
Well, I guess actually us. Well, I mean, I think we did agree on this because I figured like yeah, the Dark Knight trilogy was going to be our finale.
Yeah,
and then Odyssey was announced. I'm like, well.
Yeah, no.
I guess we're so fucking back.
Yeah, exactly. The unofficial
okay, but I ain't
finale.
Okay, but I ain't waiting a whole year just to talk about the Dark Knight trilogy.
Oh, well, well, we'll get to it when we get to it. How about that?
Fair enough.
All right. So, Robyn, I think it's time for us to say our goodbyes, but before we do, why don't you shout out your stuff, dude? Where can people find you?
Inside a black Jeep Commander. It's like the this is the closest thing I got is like a tree house or some shit like that. I don't know.
Bart's treehouse from The Simpsons. Nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of just do it just to like get away from everything, just like my own little quiet place, and I use it as a recording booth.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
And just stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no. Anyway, yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky. My Twitters are still there. They're privated, but like, because fuck Elon, I guess. So I doubt you getting much of that. You'll probably like see me post more on Blue Sky, but like I do not like post anything on like on Twitter anymore. Probably just repost stuff, but like I will not like you will not hear peep out of me unless it's like a rare occasion.
No, that makes sense.
There's my Instagram because I started using that a lot as of recently. So there's that. Of course there's my letterbox.
Of course.
But there's also Rate Your Music. I'm also on Rate Your Music as well because I hear that's a letterbox for music. And the reason I'm bringing this up because we're hoping that by the time this is either uploaded or around the same time, my first episode of Robyn's Turntable should be released as well. At this moment, I'm still recording on the episode. I'm getting some work done in it, so please expect that soon. I swear, I've hold this off for as long as I can, but I want to get this done and out there so I can continue forward and do more episodes and have people on. And speaking of which, I definitely need to I should probably come up with a different layout for guest people to have on because this is my normal talking layout for it, and just, it's have your icon in the corner, so I didn't really do much with it. And then of course there's this one where it's oh yeah, I'll talk about the albums themselves.
Right.
This I just kind of just did as a test example.
Yeah, exactly. But it
worked
out.
And then you see I'd have I'll have the album here, a title, and maybe a release date. For example, well, first of all, get this out of the way.
No, I love the Cuban Missile Crisis album.
Yeah, fuck yeah. So here's a little teaser of what to expect on my first episode. I'm doing a 2024 retrospect of favorite albums that dropped this year. So expect The Haunted House by Abandoned Pools, Clancy by 21 Pilots, Death or Glory by Palais Royale, The Surface Seems So Far by Seether, which I'm still talking about at this moment, Music by Coldplay, and then finally From Zero by Linkin Park.
Yeah, so I'll be sure to edit this as slowly as possible. No, it'll be out sometime this week, obviously. But yeah, like I said,
same with mine.
We're recording this the day of the Oscars. The Oscars are happening tonight. I will not be watching them.
Is?
Yeah, no. So by the time people hear this, the Oscars have already happened. They already know who the winners are. I have no idea who's won it, and quite frankly, I don't care. I don't care right now, and I'm not going to care when the actual winners come out. So
I'm not going to care at all. Maybe for James' reactions, maybe, but
yeah,
I don't know. I got a death battle reaction I got to get to with Spark Squad pretty soon because I believe it's Ghost Rider and Spawn.
Cool.
That's today's episode. So we're probably going to be focused on that, and then of course probably going to be doing the Persona 5 with them.
Yeah. Oh, I'm watching Earth Girls Are Easy tonight because that's
we
an
do
Oscars
every
tradition.
Sunday. Oh yeah, let's fucking go. Wait, on your own?
Yeah, I think on my own because I own it on Blu-ray and I realized I've never watched it on Blu-ray.
Oh man.
Oh.
Okay.
I'll think about it, but again, we're talking about this. All these events that we're talking about have already happened by the time people hear this. So you'll see.
That is true.
You'll see. You'll all see.
Are we done? Have we done an episode on Earth Girls Are Easy yet?
We have not done an episode on Earth Girls Are Easy. I'm waiting for that. That one will be you, me, and William.
Fuck yes. Yeah, let's go.
That is an absolute you, me, and William episode. I don't know when we'll do it, but we will. That is absolutely going to happen someday. Again, yippee. I don't know when.
Yippee.
All right. Yeah. So yeah.
All right, I'm stoked about that. But yeah,
all your links will be in the description below. Thank you so much for coming on today to talk about Doctor Strangelove and following. I was a bit rambly this episode, I admit it, but I love Doctor Strangelove with all my heart. I just had to pour out all my love for it in this episode. I probably didn't make that much sense, but and following, good movie, good first Nolan movie that we finally got to. So.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're fine with rambling for the most part because I think most times just fuck, I don't know what to say. There are so many issues in the way that I couldn't have more clearer thoughts. I probably want to say more, but it's just I don't know. I just figured maybe we had more stuff to say and I could jump in on it, but it's whatever. We got what we can out, and it's what's done is done, and I think we spent a good 2 hours on this.
Yeah.
Because my recording is almost at 2 hours.
Mine is too. So yeah.
So I think we spent a good enough time talking about it. So yeah.
Yeah. Let's call it here then. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you all next time.
All right. Cool.
Bye bye.
All right. Peace out.
Just